The day the world gave up, it began with whispers, rumors of violence in distant cities, then hospital overflow, then silence. The cordyceps infection didn't just kill civilization, it executed it with methodical precision. Within days, the infrastructures we mistook for permanent crumbled like ancient ruins. Emergency broadcasts faded to static. Military checkpoints became abandoned posts. The skies, once streaked with airplane trails, emptied except for black smoke rising from cities that would never recover. What remains most haunting is not what we lost, but how quickly we surrendered it. Parents abandoned children. Neighbors turned weapons on each other. The veneer of society, that delicate film we believed was solid foundation, dissolved under the weight of primal fear. Doorways became battlegrounds. Grocery stores became killing fields. The infection didn't need to claim everyone. It only needed to claim enough to make us destroy ourselves. In those first chaotic hours, humanity confronted its most devastating realization. We were never as civilized as we pretended to be. The infection merely revealed the savagery lying dormant beneath our social contracts. As Joel carried Sarah through that shattered neighborhood, streetlights casting shadows across a world disintegrating by the minute, we witnessed not just the death of his daughter, but the death of the old world's illusions. There was no gradual decline, no heroic last stand, just the whimper of a species realizing its time had passed. Nature's victory is mankind's funeral. The ruins of human civilization now stand as monuments to nature's patient revenge. Skyscrapers, once symbols of our dominion, are slowly digested by climbing vines and persistent roots. Streets become riverbeds. Shopping malls transform into forests. What mankind built in centuries, nature reclaims in decades. There is terrible beauty in this reclamation. Sunlight filtering through cracked glass ceilings onto mall floors where deer graze between abandoned kiosks. Nature does not mourn our absence. It celebrates. Birds nest in boardrooms. Wolves hunt in suburbs. The green that crawls across our monuments isn't just growth, it's conquest. Each tendril of ivy pulling apart concrete is a victory flag planted in humanity's grave. The world hasn't ended. It has simply continued without us, indifferent to our disappearance. Most haunting are the spaces where human purpose has been erased and rewritten. Swimming pools become ponds teeming with life. Highways transform into migration routes for animals that never knew human traffic. The rusted hulks of automobiles cradle seedlings that will one day grow tall enough to obscure all evidence of what came before. This reclamation isn't just physical, it's existential. The earth doesn't remember us. Our greatest achievements become nothing more than unusual formations in a landscape that continues turning, breathing, living without witness or record. We are not just dying, we are being forgotten. The system that pretends to save. Inside the quarantine zones, Fedra maintains the illusion of salvation. Concrete walls and military discipline promise protection, but they deliver a hollow parody of life. Survivors shuffle through food lines with ration cards clutched in dirty hands, counting calories like prayers. They sleep in converted office buildings and department stores, bodies pressed together under the watchful eyes of guards who view them as potential infection vectors rather than people. The system does not exist to save humanity. It exists to manage its extinction. Children are taught to identify spore patterns rather than to dream. Adults are assigned labor based on resource needs rather than passion or talent. The zones don't preserve life. They warehouse it. Each morning, scanners probe skin for infection markers, reducing human bodies to biological threats. Each night, curfew sirens wail, herding people indoors like livestock. What remains most insidious is how the system cultivates gratitude for this imprisonment. At least we're safe, whisper the survivors, even as they watch public executions of rule breakers. At least we have walls, they murmur, as ration cards dwindle and soldiers claim extra portions. The quarantine zones reveal humanity's final tragedy, our willingness to surrender everything that makes us human. Dignity, choice, love, for the mere promise of continued breathing. The walls don't just keep infected out, they keep humanity in, contained, and controlled until its final whimpering end. A world of belief without hope. In the vacuum left by society's collapse, new religions bloom like fungi, beautiful, toxic, and feeding on decay. The fireflies cling to their vaccine dreams, sacrificing present lives for future salvation that recedes like a mirage. The WLF builds its militarized community on vengeance disguised as justice. The Seraphites carve their prophets' words into flesh and forest alike, finding meaning in mutilation. The Rattlers create a plantation economy from human bodies, replacing one system of exploitation with another more naked in its cruelty. Each faction constructs elaborate justifications for brutality. Each believes itself the protagonist in humanity's final chapter. Each kills for a tomorrow that will never come. Their beliefs are not about hope. They are about postponing despair. The more fervently they cling to their ideologies, the more blood they spill defending them. What makes these factions truly tragic is not their violence but their sincerity. The Firefly who tortures a Fedra soldier truly believes she fights for humanity's future. The Seraphite who strings up trespassers genuinely thinks he's purifying the world. Each group has constructed a narrative that transforms their survival into something sacred, their violence into something necessary. Their beliefs don't offer escape from the horror, they merely give it purpose. They fight holy wars in a world already damned, planting flags on a shoreline being swallowed by an unstoppable tide. Survivors as the new monsters. The true horror of this world emerges not from the distorted bodies of the infected, but from the intact bodies of the survivors. Joel Miller, once a father, now a smuggler, breaks a man's arm for a debt, his movements as practiced as breathing. Abby Anderson trains her body into a weapon of vengeance, each muscle built to deliver retribution. Ellie Williams maps kill zones with mechanical precision, crossing off names like items on a grocery list. David offers human meat with the gentle smile of a caretaker. These are not aberrations. These are adaptations. To survive in this world is to become monstrous. The infected attack by biological imperative, the survivors kill by choice, again and again until choosing violence becomes reflex rather than decision. We're shitty people, Joel tells Tess, not in confession but in simple acknowledgement of necessary transformation. What haunts us is not just what these characters do, but our recognition of what they've lost to become capable of doing it. We see Joel's gentleness only in memory and flashes with Ellie. We glimpse Abby's humanity only after her revenge is spent. The infected lose their minds to the fungus. The survivors sacrifice their humanity piece by piece, a voluntary surrender that feels somehow more tragic than infection. They survive, but at costs they cannot calculate until they've already been paid. In nightmares, in trembling hands, in the inability to recognize themselves in reflections. Love is a poison. Here, in the ruins of civilization, love persists, not as salvation but as another form of doom. Joel's love for Ellie drives him to massacre the Fireflies, destroying humanity's chance at a vaccine. Abby's love for her father fuels a quest for vengeance that leaves bodies scattered across Seattle. Ellie's love for Joel propels her abandon Dina and their child, hunting Abby through California's wasteland. Each attachment becomes a new vulnerability, each bond another way to bleed. Yet they reach for each other anyway, across this poisoned landscape. Bill fortifies an entire town to protect Frank, only to lose him to illness no barricade can stop. Henry shoots himself rather than live in a world without Sam. Marlene loves Ellie enough to sacrifice her for a greater good and dies for that decision. Love in this world isn't just doomed, it's weaponized. It doesn't just break hearts, it breaks worlds. Most devastating is how this love lacks redemptive power. Joel's love for Ellie doesn't heal the world, it condemns it. Abby's protection of Lev doesn't atone for her brutality against Joel. Dina's devotion to Ellie cannot save her from the gravity of vengeance. Love here is not transcendent. It is terribly, painfully mortal. It bleeds, it breaks, it ends. These characters reach for each other across chasms of trauma, their connections momentarily beautiful but ultimately unable to bridge the void. Like infected hosts joined by fungal networks, their attachments become systems for transmitting pain rather than healing it. Memories that hurt, more than wounds. The physical scars, Ellie's bitten fingers, Joel's impaled abdomen, Abby's crucified frame, are mere shadows of the psychological wounds festering beneath. These survivors don't just walk through a dead world, they carry graveyards inside them. Joel reaches for a daughter 20 years gone whenever he sees a young girl's face. Ellie's fingers hover over guitar strings they can no longer press, each phantom note an echo of Joel. Abby builds her body into armor that cannot protect her from nightmares of her father's death. Trauma doesn't heal here, it accumulates. Each survivor carries an invisible inventory of horrors, the sounds of loved ones turning, the weight of the first human they killed, the taste of choices they cannot unmake. I'm still waiting for my turn, Ellie confesses, haunted not just by survivors' guilt, but by the certainty that good things end. The infection transforms bodies, memory transforms minds, warping them around absences that can never be filled. What remains most cutting is how these memories contaminate even moments of peace. Joel cannot enjoy a sunset without remembering all the people who will never see another. Ellie cannot look at her child without seeing her bloodied hands. The few moments of beauty, a giraffe wandering through a ruined city, a dance in a church, music played in an empty house, are rendered more painful by their contrast with the surrounding desolation. Memory becomes another form of infection, spreading through minds, transforming the present into a shadow of what was lost, a future that doesn't exist. The true despair of this world lies not in its devastated present, but in its foreclosed future. There will be no rebuilding. There will be no vaccine. There will be no redemption arc for humanity. The cordyceps spreads, the survivors age. The knowledge needed to reconstruct civilization dies with each passing generation. Children born after the outbreak learn to hunt and kill, but not to read or build. The books rot, the machines rust, the skills disappear. What remains is not a struggle for salvation, but a prolonged epilogue, human history's final pages, written in blood and fading into silence. Jackson's community isn't the beginning of recovery. It's just a momentary eddy in the current of extinction. The Fireflies don't fight for cure anymore. They fight because fighting is all they remember how to do. Even love cannot create future here, only briefly delay the inevitable. Most heartbreaking is the survival survivor's persistent belief in tomorrow, despite all evidence of its impossibility. Ellie's journal filled with song lyrics for performances that will never happen. Joel's collection of broken watches as if time still matters. Abby training for a Firefly restoration that cannot succeed. These small acts of hope aren't inspiring. They're devastating. The last flickering lights in a darkness that grows only deeper, colder, more complete. The Last of Us aren't the beginning of what comes next. They are merely the final witnesses to humanity's long, painful goodnight, a dusk without promise of dawn.
Subscribe for more interesting stuff. Tell us your experience in the comments.